Hello, I'm Josh Cooperman, and this is Convo by Design with another virtual trip to one of my favorite locations, Dallas, Fort Worth, to talk about exceptional design in an amazing and vibrant market, the metroplex. Many cities don't have a name. You know, the metroplex. I lived in Dallas for 9 years, loved living there. Love that it's got a name too. If you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you probably know just how fond I am of Fort Worth, Dallas, Fort Worth, depending which comes first, depending on where you live. If you live in Fort Worth, it's Fort Worth, Dallas. If you live in Dallas, it's Dallas, Fort Worth. It's a thriving market that has absolutely exploded in the past 20 years. With that population explosion came an influx of new art, food, design, architecture, music. When this happens, it usually means a couple of other things. Gentrification, higher housing costs, infill projects, destruction of older dwellings to make room for new ones. DFW has seen and continues to see all of the above, which is why it's so important for good stewards, talented creatives, really, really smart designers to be present as well. You've heard from some of the others in Dallas-Fort Worth that I've spoken to over the years, as well as Houston, Austin, San Antonio. Amazing design talent in Texas. And this is where Angeline Guido Hall comes in. She is a Dallas native, actually studied interior design at TCU. Angeline knows what makes the metroplex so special, designs to the strengths, and because of this, she's leaving her mark on the design landscape, an amazing mark, an indelible mark, and you're going to hear her story right after this. I am so proud of my partnership with Thermosol. They have been presenting partners of Convo by Design for 4+ years, and there is a certain amount of pride that comes with saying that the show is presented by the company that is the absolute best in the world at what they do. Thermosol engineers the most exceptional smart shower products and steam shower systems worldwide for a few reasons. They were the first company to design and patent the technology here in the US, dating back to 1958. Thermosol, a US-based manufacturer in Round Rock, Texas, employs an engineering team that designs, tests, and continuously refines the product. Their quality control team tests every single steam generator before it departs the factory. Who else does that? Nobody. I have the pleasure of working with some world-class designers and architects who tell me, and you know this, that the idea of luxury has changed, especially when clients want a spa-like bathroom. Steam is mandatory, or it's just not considered luxury. If you want to add steam, you have really one true option if you want the best, and that's Thermosol. Mitch Altman, third-generation CEO of this family-owned company of 65 years, continues to innovate the bathroom and shower space through technological marvels such as intelligent showering systems, sound therapy, aromatherapy, chromotherapy, technical interfaces, and so much more. And now, Thermosol, the industry leader in steam bath equipment and technology since 1958, is enhancing its already stellar family of products with the new indoor and outdoor luxury saunas. Available in 3 design configurations, each sauna is handcrafted from clear Western red cedar or Nordic spruce, inspired by the brilliance of Northern European sauna technology and design. Thermosol's latest collections offer luxurious features, and there's only one option if you want the finest experience: Thermosol. Check out thermosol.com and at Thermosol on the socials. So you are in Dallas. You're in Dallas. Yeah. I love Dallas. I love Texas. I lived in Dallas for 9 years. 2
Okay.
tours. Yeah. I was in radio at the time.
Oh, wow. All right. And
So do you
what
know what's that?
I was going to say, were you with like a certain station that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first I was the music rep for The Edge.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So I was okay. So whenever we bring me my I don't know why I wanted to bring me my AirPods, my 7-year-old, they're home from fall break this week. When they were like, where do you want to record your podcast? I was like, totally at home. The acoustics will be better than the office. I won't have a million people here. I would rather, it's much easier having a million adults around than two small children who want to
Do you
come
know
and,
what the do you know what though? It's really interesting. So having the reference point of having two kids in college
uh-huh.
and really like having gone through the 7, 8, 10, 12, would love to have it back, but I get so much more done.
Oh my, I know it. I mean, my goodness, I love my kids to death. I would never change a thing about it, but I kind of forgot they were on fall break when I was like, oh yeah, I'll record it at home. It'll be so much easier. And then I was like, oh my God, they're on fall break. My nanny's here. I was like, I'm out of the room. Okay. I just need like an hour.
I love that.
Okay,
But
you're ready.
back to the original story. So yeah, so I was the music rep for The Edge.
Oh, no way. That
Yeah,
is so
when it was at 94.5.
okay. Man, those were good times. That was some
And
good music.
it's been a minute, but yeah, it was so it was mid 90s.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because sorry designers and design enthusiasts, but we're going to talk music for a minute. At the time, it was like old 97s, Deep Blue Something, Toadies, all of these amazing Texas bands were all playing down at Deep Ellum. And because I was the music rep, there used to be this club on Lower Greenville called the Red Jacket.
Okay.
And I lived off Vickery.
Oh,
So I would be able to just M Street. So just walk over to the Red Jacket. And on Sunday nights, we did Red Square Retro, which it was all 80s on Sunday nights. And it was packed for,
okay.
I don't know, about a year and a half. It was just amazing. What an amazing time for music and in Dallas, in North Texas at that time.
Live, right in the 90s. Like right now, my husband and I are having our kids watch 90s classics movies. Like they just don't do it like they did in the 90s anymore. Now, design is better than it was in the 90s for sure today, I feel like. For most styles, I guess you could say. But yeah, music was great in the 90s, and movies were great in the 90s. It was just life was simpler, it was good. I was a 90s kid. I was born in 86. And so I was, really reared in the 90s as you would like to say. But yeah, it's a different time now for sure. But my husband and I, Lower Greenville, we,
It, you what now?
I said my husband and I met on Lower Greenville in the early 2000s. So
Very cool. Club.
yeah, I was out illegally in a bar with my fake ID, and it was his 25th birthday. So
Awesome.
yeah.
You know what's funny? That's like the plot of a John Hughes movie. I mean, that could be, yeah.
Yeah, he asked, I said something about, oh yeah, I'm not really supposed to be here. And he was like, well, how old are you? And I said, well, I'll be 21. And he like stepped back with his hands up. And I was like, I'm not 17. Like it's the 2000s. Like people can date and they're 5 years apart. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, and it's Texas, and you get away with everything in Texas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you were raised in Dallas. When did you I always love the origin stories. I really do because I am fascinated by how people got to where they are and
Sure.
doing what they do because I feel like that informs how they do what they do,
Yeah,
right? So
absolutely.
so you went to TCU. Did you study design there?
It. I grew up in a family of home builders, and I just grew up on the job sites and was so fascinated with construction. And it's even today, like when I enter a job site and it's in the drywall stage and you smell the drywall mud, it just like sets me back to being a kid and being on the job sites with my parents. And they had owned and operated a business together for many years, and my mom handled a lot of the client relations and the design selections, and my dad kind of ran construction, and my mom was also really involved in the construction as well. And then after their divorce, she ended up getting some land in the divorce, and she was like, I'm going to build houses by myself. And so I was always very, I guess you could say, inspired by both my parents, especially, my mom kind of taking on the construction industry as a woman. And so my biggest passion in design is definitely on the construction side. Most of our projects, they'll, before they enter into furnishings, they start as either remodels or new construction homes. And I just love the architectural space planning. Like those are my big like kicks, I guess you could say, within the industry. But so I never wanted to do anything different. My parents had been through a couple of recessions, and they were like, please go to school for something other than interior design, and you're never going to make any money. And they were right for a while. I wasn't making much money for a very long time, but I feel like when you're passionate about something, I know that sounds so cliche to say, but when you're truly passionate about something, as long as you're making like a living, it's not really that important, I guess you could say. Like, so, and then you get to a point where you have to support a family and you're like, okay, I need to kick it into high gear and I need to make some money. But this was fun when I was single and I didn't have to worry about making much money, but the passion really led me to where I am today, I guess you could say.
So a couple of things to
Yeah.
unpack here. The first is, how do you use your experience on the building side in your design work? Meaning, as a woman, look, it's unfortunate, but it's real,
No,
right?
it's
As a woman, you can't walk in and tell contractors what to do
mhm.
because for two reasons. One, they don't respond well to it traditionally, historically. And two, because ultimately you're not going to get what you want. They're going to kick back. And this is, by the way, I have to say this is not all contractors. I work with a ton of contractors, and I know a ton of contractors and builders and developers who really are remarkable on the customer service side with everybody.
Yes.
But in large part, still to some degree, with contractors, with trades, you have that issue. Um,
Hmm.
how do you use what you know?
Yeah, I think that it's also about the delivery. I mean, just in life in general, it's about the delivery of information and kind of gaining people's respect. So I watched my mom kind of deal with this in the early years of her developing her business a little bit. And I think that um, once you kind of start having conversations and cluing the subs into like, hey, I know what I'm talking about, kind of thing, without um over explaining yourself to where it looks like you're trying to like, look at me, I know what I'm talking about, like shut up and listen to me. So I think that there's subtle ways to kind of work that in, and it kind of happens over time a little bit. Like the first few times that maybe we meet with a contractor, I think they might brush me off as like, oh, it's the decorators, how they like to call us decorators. So and then like once we start having conversations and they also see like our full deliverable set of what we give them as a design package, it's like, oh wow, these people really know what they're doing. It's really architecturally based. There's a lot of detailed drawings that go into our deliverable set. There's a ton of information. There's also like years of experience behind that as well, that I think kind of initially on their own kind of gain maybe a little bit of respect up front. But at the end of the day, like the way that I look at it is I'm the client's advocate on the job site. So the client hired me for a service, and obviously, like I love to make friends with everybody on the job site. I love to be close with the contractors. Like that, I believe, is the most successful way to have like a truly successful team, is for nobody throwing each other under the bus, like everyone having, respect for one another. But at the end of the day, like if I have to, I'm going to stand up for my client. So I've had to kind of bully a couple of contractors, a few, but really I try not to. I really, really do try not to. And I try just to have a side conversation with them and say, look, we're on the same team. obviously know what I'm talking about. You know what you're doing. What can we kind of work through together to mitigate this situation, whatever it might be at hand? But I think that just the more site visits we have, the more visits I have, the more phone calls, I think that they quickly understand that like me and my team, like we know what we're talking about. We know what we're doing. So it just kind of comes with time, I guess, to answer your question.
Yeah,
Time.
yeah. So, and you, so I believe you hung your shingle in 2014. Is that correct?
2014. Mm-hmm.
How has the design industry changed in North Texas since that time, since you went out on your own? Because it's interesting, Highland Park, I think that almost every house has utilized an interior designer at some point in certain areas, right? Or, other areas of town, certain parts of Fort Worth. Um, but now it seems to be far more ubiquitous. But what have you seen? How has design changed in Dallas, in particular, Fort Worth, in particular, North Texas, since you started?
Um, I would say that over the years, my clientele base has kind of changed a little bit. So, and I think that most designers would probably agree with this, that there's more people are using designers now. And it almost is like no matter really what their budget is, they're still wanting some kind of consultation. So I think that people are there's like this drive, this rise in and I don't know if it comes from social media or HGTV or what it might be, but people are seeing the value in what an interior designer can bring. And so my client base has definitely gotten higher end as the years go by. Um, but we still do have other services that where we can work with people that maybe don't want to spend $500,000 on their furnishings, and they might want to spend 50,000 on doing 3 rooms, and that's our design board service can kind of help them do that. So I would say my business has changed over the years in a certain trajectory, going like a little bit higher end, but I do still see that there's a need for every I guess you could say like type of family to really want to hire a designer. And to go back to your question about just like regarding the industry itself and how it's changed, I think that it's definitely gotten saturated for sure. Like there's a lot of designers, and we all have something different to offer, which is great. But and this may be the same in Oklahoma. I'm not sure. Feel free to interject, but it's it's definitely saturated. There's lots of builders working with their kind of favorite designers. There's lots of architects referring their favorite designers and things like that. But it's not an easy industry. It's small but large at the same time. You could say lots of competition. So you really have to work on setting yourself apart for sure.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. You know what's interesting too, though, when you think about Texas, there are certain things now, especially in Dallas, Fort Worth, that are really interesting that have changed dramatically from when I was there. And I think we left in yeah, we left in 2006.
Mm.
And it's really interesting. Not every house is brick anymore. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. Thank goodness. Um,
Yes.
since the pandemic, design has really changed dramatically too. And I think it really speaks to modern tastes, especially in the South. You have bars that are visible.
Hmm.
It's a small thing. It's a little thing, but gosh, in the 90s, find a house where you would take the liquor cabinet and use the bottles as accessories, and
Yeah.
actually make a visible vignette out of the bar because it's so functional. Everything was always just hidden away before. Everything was white, off white, taupe, or beige, you know, and I don't mean to pigeonhole the South with that, but it was always muted. But if you look at your work is not muted. Your work is vibrant. Your work is probably, I'm assuming, completely original and independent to the people for whom you're designing. When you
Absolutely.
came in, when you came in 2014, was it like that? And have you since gained certain freedoms as tastes have changed?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that also as what another thing I've noticed as I kind of grow the business and the years go by is that clients are a lot better at explaining or being able to show their style of what they're trying to achieve, which makes our job a little easier. I mean, we still have to do a lot of like psychological analysis for sure, and that's a large part of our process. But because there are so many great outlets like Instagram and anything on social media, House, Pinterest, it has, I mean, honestly, I don't know kind of how how the designers of the 90s really got inspiration to kind of get their clients on board. I think their clients would just see something they've done before and like, okay, this is your style, just do my house, you know? Like I remember going around to design showrooms with my mom and sitting on, you know, furniture with clients, and we do still do that, but beforehand there's so much that goes into the process before you even get to that point. And you know, back then you didn't really have the luxury of that as much. And even in 2014, when we started, there wasn't as much, excuse me, as much online influence, I feel like, as there is today from clients. So it was kind of harder. I feel like I kind of had to go like a little bit more round and round with clients back then. And also I just think that there wasn't as much of a level of trust as there is now because I have 10 years under my belt of doing this on my own. So I feel like clients are definitely more trusting with me and my team. So it's gotten a lot easier, I guess you could say, over the years in terms of kind of getting down to the bottom of what a client wants and being able to deliver that to them. There's just so many more resources now than there were then. And kind of back to what you were asking about, you know, just in Dallas in general, how have things changed? I kind of missed something that I wanted to note about that. People are taking more risks in design now, and they are breaking rules, which is definitely more fun. They're not kind of trying to stay within this box of Cape Cod or Mediterranean or whatever it might be. I heard you mention Cape Cod on one of your podcasts, and I know exactly what you were talking about when you said that with a splash of blue. It's like knew exactly what you were referring to. And it's like they're kind of bending the rules, and a lot of clients are letting us do that now, and maybe they weren't as much back then. So
You know, what's interesting too is that, you know, back in the day, before everyone's project, before, you know, before social media, and it's funny too, when you talk about, there's a new generation now of young people who have had Facebook in their lives their entire life
mm-hmm.
since they
Yeah.
were born. Facebook. So, you know, you can go back on their parents' page or whatever and see pictures of them, you know, at the hospital. Like
Yeah.
their entire life is memorialized on Facebook. So it's one of those things where at some point we're going to be those people who are like, when I was young, you know, back in my day.
We
But
didn't have
yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I've kind of railed on over the years, that really irritates me and continues to this day, it's getting better, but what I call the design flyover states, which is basically anything from Nevada to Connecticut. You know, these are all just kind of like, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening, but nobody ever really pays attention to it. You know, I can't look back at AD and tell you when the first time that they added a Texas designer to the AD 100, but you can't tell me that 85% of the world's greatest design talent reside in Manhattan
yeah.
or LA. You can't tell me that, because I don't think it's true. From my experience after 10 years of doing these conversations, I can tell you that's not true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, I can't tell you the first time El Decor or AD published a Dallas project.
Hmm.
but I don't think it's been maybe 10 years ago, maybe 50, maybe 15, maybe 8. I don't know when it happened, but the point is like, I think now we're seeing things that we never used to see before. You talk about design in the 90s. Nobody saw any of the designs that were taking place in the 90s because there was no place to see them unless they
Yeah.
were in one of the trade magazines.
Yeah. That's true. That's actually very true. And like, published coffee table books and things like that. I think that maybe going back and looking at some of those in the 90s and seeing what like true modern design was happening, because there was some bad like traditional kind of style stuff, not traditional, but that like mauve, where mauve and green met, what I
Mm,
mean?
mm.
Lots of faux florals and Laura Ashley fabrics and things like that. There were some great executions of those, but there were some really bad executions of it as well, like there is today. I mean, there's good and bad execution today as well, still obviously, but yeah, they didn't have all the different outlets of inspiration and publications and things like that we do today. So,
Would you say that you are more of a technical designer because of your construction and building background?
absolutely, like our process is very architecturally based, and I love working very closely with architects and builders. That again is very much my passion. So you would see that as a client and through a lot of the process with us. Because the first step in our process is a plan review. So depending on where the client is on their build, like they may have just met with an architect 3 times and they might have a very early preliminary set of plans that they want us to look at, or they might have a mostly done set of plans that they want us to come in and look at. And that's the first thing I do is we start looking at that and the layout of the kitchen and how does it relate to this and that. And maybe there's something you didn't think about with the sight line or a windows in the way of where a bed wall could be or a door swing. Lots of kind of small things that could add up to big issues possibly later. I can't tell you how many times we've had to go in when a client thinks that they're done with a floor plan and say, okay, how many people do you want to seat? Like, do you want to host in your living room? Oh, we'd love a sectional and a pair of chairs and large coffee table and a set of ottomans in front of the fireplace. We'd love to seat like at least 10 people in there. I'm like, okay, well, this living room is 19 feet wide and there's 2 walkways on both sides. So I know that on plan, you look at it and you're like, oh, 19 feet. No, immediately take 6 feet away. You're left with 13 feet of furnishing space. So, and we've had to go in and kind of finesse all of that and say, you need to add 3 more feet to the width of your living room. And where is this going to go? And so the earlier, the better for us, because we are very technically driven in our process. So the earlier a client can engage, the better it's going to be for them and the architect.
Have you seen an opportunity? And again, I do believe there's going to be a solid, thick line of delineation in our conversations moving forward as it relates to design and architecture between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I really do believe that this is one of those rings in the tree where you're going to be able to say, oh, something happened here because
Yes.
there was a fundamental shift in the manner in which designers design and people live. Have you found new opportunity as a designer to work on spaces that previously maybe you hadn't? For example, the idea of wellness in the home, the idea, which wasn't really, people didn't really pay attention to that
Mm-hmm.
much. The idea of fundamental use of outdoor spaces, second or third kitchen areas, and last, something that I'm digging in with both feet right now is the idea of safety and security, because I think that's the next. I believe that that's the next vista. Have you found opportunities that didn't exist pre-pandemic for you as a designer?
Absolutely. I mean, some of the spaces that you were listing out are spaces that we've really thoroughly enjoyed working on now, like lots of home gyms. I before the pandemic, I mean, we would have like exercise, like kind of small exercise rooms here and there, but there was such a shift in that during the pandemic that people really prioritizing their health and not being able to go to the gym and being like, screw it. If this happens again, like I want a state of the art gym at home. I want a steam room. I want a sauna. So yes, people are really going above and beyond with that sort of thing for sure. And yes, outdoor spaces, huge, big time outdoor living. I'm working on designing a new house right now with a builder and an architect as a spec. And the builder's kind of giving us kind of free reign. And the way that we're designing the house is really all around the outdoor living. And I know that sounds crazy in Texas because it's hot, but even in Texas, like people want to be outside. They want to be enjoying their pools. They want to be enjoying their patios. So like, how do we make that possible for them to enjoy those spaces, even when it's 107 degrees outside? So also, I feel like the shift in the way that we are able to present to clients has changed. I mean, Zoom, like I was complaining earlier about how I don't like to operate it. I always have someone else in the meeting with me, like to operate the Zoom. And then, but it has allowed us actually to do it quite a few out of town projects. So, and I think during the pandemic, it also really required us to button up our process and the way that we presented to clients. And it had made our process even stronger, which also made it a better fit for out of town projects. So right now we have like 6 out of town projects. And I never had out of town projects prior to maybe 2 years ago. I mean, little here and there, like I had one in Arkansas, and it was just furnishings, but we're doing full remodel, full new construction homes, all furnishings all over the US right now. So,
wow.
Yeah. So that really helped us. I think, I think people realized, hey, we can really do stuff virtually. Oh, oops. Sorry.
How has that changed? How has that changed your travel schedule? Not that young kids would ever change the way that you want to do what you want to do when you want to do it, but how has that changed business in Dallas, family in Dallas? But now we've got this, and it's a real thing. You've got this whole idea of you have to now take the show on the road and go elsewhere, which creates a whole different set of issues. How do you manage that?
I have an amazing team. Like there's 12 of us on staff, and so within that there's 3 senior designers, and then they each have their own junior designer. And so they really handle a lot of the client communication, builder communication, all of that. They each have maybe like 1 to 2 projects that are out of town at a time, I would say. And they're all kind of in different stages. So they're not being like pulled in so many directions. So I think it's all about like staging those projects properly. And it's nice if we can kind of get them in generally the same region. Like right now I have one in Maryland and I have one in DC. So if we need to kind of, finagle a site visit where 2 days we go to this one and then 2 days we go to that one, we kind of can. But, honestly, like our deliverable set has so much information in it. It has an entire finish schedule of every single down to the hardware selection that they would need before they even break ground. And everything is coded to our architectural design set that we do of all of our elevations. So we're not required to be on site as much anymore, I feel like, as we did before we had this very buttoned up deliverable set and process. So it's made things a lot easier to do these out of town projects. So the schedules, it's like you just kind of manage however you can. And I have an amazing nanny here as well. She's willing to step in and help. She's really like my nanny now. Like I need her more than the kids do. She does so much. She does all kinds of stuff for us. And she's keeping my kids at bay right now out of this room. So
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. One of the things that I love to do is when we're having these conversations is to go to the website And if you're listening and you want to follow along, you can go to Angie's website, which you will find a link in the show notes. And then we go to the project, the portfolio. And anytime I get an inkling that the designer's own house is in their portfolio, I'm starting there. And so because there's Angeline's house, I'm going
Uh-huh.
to assume that it's yours.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's my house.
Love it.
Yeah.
What kind of client are you?
Ooh. I feel like I would be the type of client as I am the type of boss, I guess, that I am, which is like letting people do their thing, letting people giving my opinion about things, but like letting them run their show and coming in when I need to interject. So I feel like I'm kind of also that way as a client. Like I hired you for a reason. You have an expertise. What you show me first. I'll give you my ideas. You show me first. I'll massage a little bit, but ultimately I'm going to back away and trust and be like, okay, that I hired you for a reason.
Okay, so did you do it yourself or did you allow one of your team members to do the design?
I would say that I did probably 85% of it myself.
Okay, so you're a control freak client.
Well, at that time, I built the house in 2019 and 2020. And we moved in like right before the world shut down, like a week before the world just like shut down.
Yeah.
At that time, I didn't have as large of a staff. If I were to do it again today, I would say that I would probably have more of a structure, like a senior designer and a junior designer. But back then I was doing it myself. And then again, this was, 4 years ago before I had even as much experience as I do now. I would definitely do things differently in my own house today. Like if we were to build again, I would do a lot of things differently. I feel like I've learned so much about the industry itself and construction and design and everything in the last 4 years that I would do so many things differently. So, but yeah, if I could have had more help with my house, I would have, but I didn't have as many staff members. We didn't have as much extra time. We were just like flowing and going. I was making decisions on the fly. Like it was a mess. It was honestly my my dad helped me with the plans. He did the shell of the build. I was managing the finish out like from sheetrock on myself, and it was just we were living with my dad while we were, oh my God, my husband was like, can you please get this house finished?
Was it ground up?
Yes.
It was. Okay.
Yes.
What knowing what you know now, and I think that, wouldn't it be great if every designer could go back to their clients in 4 years and
Yes.
say, okay, what works, what doesn't work? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just not done. But if you had to do that with yourself, what works, what would you have done differently?
Okay. So I feel like the pantry has become so glamorized over the last few years that we are doing these like incredible pantries for people. And I was moving from a much smaller house where I had a very small pantry. And now in a lot of our remodels, we were doing like the cabinet pantries with the pullouts, which I was like, I'm not going to take up square footage in the house to do a big pantry. I don't need it. Let's just do the big big cabinets with pullouts. That's all we need to do. I regret not doing like a large pantry where I could have the toaster oven because I hate it on my countertop and I get it in and out of the appliance garage when I need to use it. Um, let's see, that would be one thing. I love a banquet moment. I would have liked figured out how to work one into my house. I feel like that's one thing I'm kind of missing in my kitchen living area is even though we have this large living area that's casual right off of our kitchen, everybody wants to hang out in the kitchen. I feel like there needs to be a little morning room or a little banquet or something that's some soft seating right in the kitchen area. So I always try to like work that in when I can with clients. Because that is one thing that I regret. And then I would say that I do not like having a second floor. And we built this house specifically for resale value because we weren't really expecting to stay here that long, but we really do love it. And it is a pain in the butt to go up and down the stairs with the kids' stuff when they're little. When they're older, I think it's fine. But when they're little, it's a pain in the butt. So I actually keep like all my kids' clothes in our downstairs guest bedroom. And they get ready in my bathroom. I would have not gone as big. We don't need this big of a house, but we were doing it for resale. And when I build my forever home, it's going to be a 1-story ranch style. And yes. And also, I would have gone ahead and done our pool. We got a quote for a pool and it was like $65,000. We were like, I don't know. Do we do it? Do we not? My daughter was like a year and a half at the time. And we were like, no, let's wait. That was so dumb. Now it's like $125,000 or $130,000 to do the same pool. It's so ridiculous.
It's bananas, right?
Yes. So anyhow, those are of my regrets.
I love that. Well, look, I don't know of a single project with a designer that when we talk about these all the time, it's like the client loves the project. I love the project. But
yeah,
there's always something. There's always something. And if you look at it long enough, you can always find something to make it better, which is the coolest thing. Next one I wanted to jump to was St. Jude's.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So striking. I love this project. I love the color. I love the tile and the wallpaper. I mean, just the backsplash, amazing. In the bathroom, what you've done with the tile and the wallpaper and juxtaposing it against mirrors so that you can see it on the other side while you see it on the same side. It's really interesting how you positioned everything. And I wanted to talk to you about that and, how the wallpaper juxtaposed against the sink too, just such vibrant colors and patterns. You must have had a client that isn't it great to have a client that lets you go nuts?
Absolutely. That was a really fun project. That was a family that he was from Spain and she was from she had like Moroccan heritage. So she wanted this Moroccan Spanish kind of vibe in the house and like extremely open to color, like loved everything I showed her. I didn't have to do like a ton of reselections. They were great. The only bad part about that project, it happened they started demo and then the pandemic started. So the project was from 3 years ago or something, or 3.5 years ago. And that was my first remodel that we were trying to navigate through COVID. And it's like, do you go to the job site all the time? Do I show up in a mask? Like, what do we do? And I realized that was one of the projects that made me realize that we didn't have enough included in our process to be able to do this if this is how the world is going to be. So that was one of the projects that really catapulted me into wanting to really button up our process a lot. And also dealing with all these construction delays and just vendors not shipping things when they're supposed to and all that kind of stuff. And so now I feel like it's kind of nice because there's this understanding of hey, we need to make all your decisions up front. Stuff is not in stock. It's going to take forever and it's better, but it's still not great. And people are okay with it. But back then I was trying to navigate the client expectations of all that. And it was a tough time, but I love how the project turned out. It was a really sweet project. I enjoyed it a lot.
I'm jumping all over the place, but one of the things I wanted to stop off at was the San Saba project because a couple of things I noticed about your work. You've been employing the open shelving, it seems like for a while, if I'm looking back at some of your work, which is definitely I'm going to just say it's a newer concept for Texas in particular. But it
Mhm.
seems like you've been doing that for a number of years. And also you found your banquet moment in this project.
Oh, wasn't that great? So that was a neat project. The client's dad is a commercial architect and he actually did their plans for them. So that was really nice to be able to work through that with them. And her father, they have three young boys, and you'll kind of see an upstairs bathroom that's a little boy bath upstairs. And there's another designer on that project with me who was very talented, and she did a great job with a lot of the selections and kind of managing the client as well. And um, that, but back to the open shelving, like, yeah, I think that to me, the open shelving for some people is very much like a stylistic thing. For me, I have it in my kitchen. I like it as a functional thing. So I like all my plates. I like all my bowls and my cups and things like that. I want to see what I have. I know where it goes. Anything that I need to hide, I can hide down below in drawers. But to me, it just feels much more like a chef's kitchen, like grabbing a plate as you're plating up food, and it's right there, to the left of the cooktop. So I think that to me, that's more of a function over form. So how do you see yourself using your kitchen? Is it very relaxed? Is it very chef kitchen? Is it like you want people to walk in and be like, oh, this isn't stuffy. Like I can hang out. And if I spill my tea on the countertop, then this person's not going to like freak out on me. So very lived in, all those sorts of things. So if that's the vibe, then I typically go toward having some open shelving in the kitchen versus just wanting to throw stuff up there that you're never going to use that just looks pretty. um I don't like that as much. I want things to be intentional and like actually have a purpose. So if out, you need to use it.
What
So
city, what city is this project in?
that was in Dallas.
Excellent. Okay. So if you look at the exterior, this project could be in could be in Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
It, it
Anyway,
could be it could be in Miami.
could be in
It could
Tulsa.
be it could be anywhere. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And it's not, it's not the but then you look inside, and again with the inside out, um it could be anywhere. That bathroom with the green cabinetry,
Isn't
the
that cute?
it
That's the
is so it's amazing. Really interesting. It's quasi industrial with subway tile and just the pops of color, and it's an amazing space. You have an adventurous client
yeah. We
that
really
it seems to they seem to allow you to kind of do what you wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think that when a space has a very, very much a driven purpose to it, it's easier to get a client to agree to commit to those decisions. So, for instance, like that was very much it was a shared boys bath with three boys. So it's like, let's commit to going all boy in here. Okay. We're doing plaid tile. We're going green on the cabinets. We're doing this cool little like trough sink, they're boys. They don't need all the same storage that girls will need. And we did have those little hutch cabinets on either side. But the funny thing is, since then, I have designed two other houses that have a shared bathroom for three boys. And they all reference that image on our portfolio as we want the bathroom to be something like this. So it's really neat. I was really appreciative that they let us do some really fun stuff in their house. And that was one of my absolute favorite builders to work with. I still work with them today on a lot of projects. And so they did an amazing job executing the design on that house. So
That's really interesting to me, that and I'm not surprised that it's highly requested, but
mhm.
it's interesting to me that it's highly requested considering, that the kind of that industrial feel to the sink and the tub, and just kind of like how the whole space is just a little bit, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that. I love that. Um, so as you look forward, we've looked back at what you've done. As you look forward, what are you looking forward to? And I don't know if we're the same in this regard, but I get really reflective around this time of year.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
As you look into, potentially shutting down, spending time with the family, moving into Q4 of 23 and into Q1 of 24, what does the business look like for you? How have you staged your upcoming projects? What does next year look like for you? And there's a lot of talk about people slowing down economically right now. I'm curious what you're finding.
Um, well, I always get nervous talking about that because I don't want to jinx myself or anyone
There's
else.
no such thing as jinxing it. There isn't. There isn't.
So, I mean, I feel like historically everybody gets kind of nervous and crazy around these times every 4 years, you know? So, I try just to not let it bother me. I try to just not be in my head about it and think about like, look at the pandemic. Like that was a terrible time and it was
Yeah.
awful for many businesses. I mean, it was really awful for my business for a few months and I was very scared and I was talking to my staff about like what if we had to do layoffs and all this sort of stuff. And then there was this huge surge of business. And again, sadly that wasn't for every industry, and again, I hate saying that it worked out for us, but it did. So I don't know. I always try to look at the glass half full and I try to not get in my head about the potentials of what could and just think about this is what we have right now. And we have a great pipeline of business built up. Our projects take time to complete. So, there is that kind of commitment from a client long term when they sign up with us. I also think that my client base has shifted. This kind of goes back to what I was talking earlier. Like it's definitely become more high end. And I think that, you know, some of the people that are maybe more concerned with financial investments are maybe not in that bracket of income, possibly as maybe some of my clients are. Now, is that to say that that's true across the board? No, but I feel like for the most part, our clientele is a little more insulated, possibly from some things, and so that does give me a little comfort. Maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better about it. I don't know, but I am just focusing on the positives of what we have moving forward and all these amazing projects that are waiting in the wings to begin or that we just started that we're going to be doing construction on, and then those also then turn into furnishings projects. So when a client signs up with us, it's almost kind of like we get the commitment of two projects. We get their construction and then that rolls into their furnishings. So it kind of builds a little bit of an insulated pipeline for us, I guess you could say. But go ahead.
No, I'm just curious. With that, are you going to be traveling next year? Are there any events that you're going to? Any design events that are back on your radar, or places that you go to every year that you just feel like, I love this, I gotta go?
We go to Round Top twice a year,
Mm-hmm.
and down in Round Top, if you're listening, you're not familiar. Round Top, Texas, is outside of Austin, and it is a huge antique show that lasts for a month, twice a year. They do it in October and April, and we go twice a year, and we buy a bunch of stuff, and we go with like a full list of things for clients. So, like right now, we're going next week, actually, or wait. What is that? Is that this week? Next week? This week. Okay. The 15th. That's next week. Okay. So anyways, I'm really excited. We have a whole list of things that we're buying for clients. So we'll go and they'll say like, okay, master bedroom, primary bedroom. Primary bedroom, we're going to be looking for a console that is between this dimension. This is the approximate budget. for the living room, coffee table, approximate dimensions needed, budget, and then we collect a retainer up front from clients. So we're just charging up that credit card the whole time we're there buying stuff for clients. And it's so much fun because they get these amazing, unique pieces that you're not going to find anywhere else. And those are the kind of things that I prefer to bring to a project anytime we can over something that's new. So we do we've been to High Point, and I did enjoy High Point a lot. We might go in the spring, but that's not going to probably be like an every year trip for me. I feel like there's so many good showrooms and resources here in Dallas that many of those places are already represented at. So while we did meet some new vendors while we were there, I get a lot more value for us going to Round Top every year, twice a year. So
I love it. It's funny because Round Top is on my list of things that I've just never found the time to do. I know. I know. Do you see different things every time you go though? It's not the same. Okay.
Absolutely. All different new things. There's a couple of our favorite vendors that there's one that buys European antiques, and the stuff is not like super inexpensive by any means. I will say that. Like there's the prices of things are definitely higher end, but if you are looking for like 4 amazing pieces for a project and you have a good budget, it's worth going. If you are looking for a dining table that's $700 or $1,000, like you might find a few pieces here and there, but there's going to be a lot of really, really amazing $4,000 dining tables, you know? So for sure. Oh, and also Reno, the other principal in my firm, he has been with me for almost 9 of the almost 10 years that I've been in business. So he handles kind of like all of our furnishings projects. I handle the construction, but then we obviously like crossover. So we have this really great yin and yang thing going on. But we are planning a trip to LA. We want to go visit some LA vendors and get to see some stuff in person that we were already specifying for clients. And so that is something we're planning to do in the spring.
Okay. So last question I have for you, and I love that you said that. Because I'm a native Angelino, LA is home. When you begin to plan, which it sounds like you have, do you know where you're going to go? Do you know who you want to visit? Do you have it laid out yet? What's like? You're not going to Disneyland. You're going right?
Right.
Okay.
So yes. So we have been collecting a list of vendors for, I would say probably the last 2 years. We've been talking about going on an LA trip, and we just haven't had the chance to do it yet. And we also work with a handful of high-end LA vendors that we want to go see in person. And in addition to those, I mean, I feel like we come across a lot through social media, Instagram, Pinterest, anything like that. And we've been adding them to our Rolodex of LA stops when we go. So when we get closer to that time, we're going to plan those showroom visits a little, like reach out and say like, hey, we're going to be in town. Can we plan to visit with our rep and kind of make a schedule of things? And then my husband and Reno's husband will be going. And I don't know.
What time of year?
Sometime in the spring, not entirely sure yet, but we go to Round Top in April. So it would probably be either March or May.
Got it. Okay. Because what I was going to say is there's a couple of things. First of all, if you were you're not going in November, but in November is the West Edge Design Fair, of which I produce all of the programming for West Edge. I do. Yeah. So that's the weekend before Thanksgiving. So if you're listening to this, sorry, it's already happened, but but it was great. It was great. So if you're thinking about November, that's a great time. Also, there's also this window of opportunity where I always suggest people try to do this if they're from, a ways away, because you've got KBiz and modernism, both within a week of each other in January, February. And then that's a beautiful time to come visit LA. So
Mhm.
if you can do like that whole West Coast swing,
Okay.
you can knock a lot of things out. But that's a week. That's not a couple of days. You can't do it in
Yeah.
a couple of days.
And that's the thing that's tough for me with like kids and school and their sports and all that. I have to be mindful about like kind of planning my trips in these little chunks of time instead of
Yeah.
spanning out over time. But I do want to go to, and we are, I think we probably already should have booked this, but I need to look into this. Actually, thank you for reminding me. We really want to go to the Kitchen and Bath Show in Vegas.
Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's what I tell people. Have you ever been?
No, and I want to go
Okay.
so.
Okay. Here's what you need to know about KBIS. It is monstrous because
Mhm.
you have KBIS and IBS, which are the International Builder Show, which are in the same. It's got to be 1 million square feet, and I'm not exaggerating. It's got to be 1 million square feet of exhibition space in the Las Vegas Convention Center. Um, they've got a Tesla loop. They've got this the Boring Company built a loop so you can take a Tesla underground
I
from
heard
one side.
about.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Um, but you're talking if you want to go and do it right, minimum 2 days.
Yeah.
Minimum.
And I think we were planning on going for 3 days. So we have some vendors that have reached out. Ferguson is a vendor that we work a lot with, and they're so funny because I do have a large staff. Like we do travel in packs, and so she was like, "Look, we can take you and maybe Reno, but like if you want to bring the rest of your crew, you're going to have to pay." I was like, "Oh no, I know," because anytime we go anywhere, there's like 12 of us, So we like to travel as a group when we can to stuff, but rolling in deep to showroom visits and stuff like
Well,
that.
anyway, let me know if you're going to go to KBIS, because I'll probably be out there covering it again this year. So, and I would love to see you while you're out there.
I'd love that. That would be so awesome. Yeah,
Very cool.
I feel like the last couple of years is really when I started, to be very frank and honest, really started having a budget to be able to do those types of things. For so
Yeah.
long, I was putting so much money back into the business and growing the business and hiring and doing all the things that I like really needed to do to set up a successful business. And so really just the last like 2 years, probably we've finally been able to have budgetary dollars freed up to do this kind of stuff. So we're really looking forward to doing some more things like that for sure.
That's awesome. And I hope I see you out there, Angeline. Thank you so much for doing this. I loved our chat. This was great.
Me too. I really, really appreciate it. I was honored that you wanted to speak with me, and this was so much fun. You're just such a natural conversationalist, and I love listening to your podcast. And so I felt so excited to be on. I really appreciate it, and this was so great. I hope to see you again.
Design Hardware's newly remodeled showroom is where you will find a gallery-style space with a thoughtful display of products, purposefully positioned to allow unbridled exploration and discovery. High-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware selections are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find your inspiration. Collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your shopping list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles.
Angeline, thank you. What a great chat. Amazing. Loved it. You can hear why I love doing this so much. And this is why it is so rewarding for me to share these stories with you. Thank you, Angeline, for making the time. Thank you to my partners and sponsors, Thermosol and Design Hardware, for your continued and unwavering support of the show and for the design community. For more stories like these from the design community, please make sure you are subscribing to the podcast so you receive new episodes automatically when they're published. That way, you never miss a single episode. Convo by Design is available everywhere you find your favorite podcasts. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to follow along on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X, as well as to tell you that and I've said this before, I love the emails that you send. I love the guest suggestions. Many of them actually wind up on the show. They've been great, and I love them. And some show ideas as well. You've sent those too, and I love those. Anyway, keep reaching out because I love hearing from you. And I hope you're enjoying the show because you're the reason why I do this. So thanks for listening. Until next week, be well and take today first.